I'd like to talk specifically about misdiagnosis or failure to diagnose cases, which can be fairly complex, but they are some of the more common types of medical malpractice claims that we see. Failure to treat, providing the wrong treatment, or complications from misdiagnosis. When we look at misdiagnosis and failure to treat cases, we're looking at what the standard of care would be in that area. Now, depending on the jurisdiction, there are national and local standards of care, and so it will depend on what jurisdiction you're in. But usually it is that care that would be provided by a reasonably prudent healthcare provider in the same field or having the same experience and training, what they would have done. And if there is a deviation from that standard of care, that's when we get into one of the first elements of medical malpractice. Once we've established that there's a deviation from that standard of care, the second step then is to determine what the damages were and if those damages were actually caused by the breach in the standard of care or that deviation from the standard of care. And this is where things get a little more complex with misdiagnosis and failure to diagnose cases, because sometimes there may be a deviation from the standard of care. However, there may not be damages caused by that deviation. So in order to determine that there actually is causation, which is another thing that we have to prove, I often like to give examples of, say, radiological cases where maybe a radiologist reads a X-ray or a CT scan improperly, and there is in fact a deviation from the standard of care. But once that was found out, the delay in time made no difference in the treatment that patient would have. So therefore, even though there was a deviation in the standard of care, that does not necessarily mean that may be a great medical malpractice case, because there's no real damages. So it's very important in those types of cases where it really is a close call sometimes to determine whether or not there are adequate or appropriate damages for your medical malpractice claim.